Hi learners, and welcome to my channel in which today I am going to deal with a lesson from the NCERT Science Class 7 Transportation in Animals and Plants. This is going to be a one-shot video with some amazing tips and tricks so that just before your exam you can do a thorough revision through NCERT reading as well as marking of all important points. So let's get started. It will be beneficial if all of you sit with your NCERT and mark along with me so that you can do a thorough revision and make the maximum out of this session. This is the first para of the chapter, which is just a basic introduction. It introduces what you're going to learn. So just do a rough reading. Some important points are animals need to transport wastes to parts from where they can be removed, as well as the function to transport substances together from the circulatory system. So we transport certain substances and also collect those substances so that they can be thrown out of our body because they are toxic for our body, and transport the necessary nutrients so that we perform our vital functions every day. So this is carried through our circulatory system, and the process of excretion is done by our excretory system, and we're going to learn about all those in this video and in this lesson. So the circulatory system, most important element of the circulatory system is blood. Now blood is basically formed of three things. It is a fluid matrix, that is the material of blood. You can say the material of blood is like a fluid. It is formed of plasma and some formed elements. Your formed elements include red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. I will be telling you soon about these. So just have a read through. So blood is a fluid. As I told you, blood is a fluid that it flows in the form of blood vessels. So this is important. The functions of blood, they are nothing but the functions of blood, which you have to keep in mind as it can be asked. So it transports substances like digestive food from small intestine to the other parts of the body. It carries oxygen from the lungs to the cells of the body, and it transports waste for the removal from the body. So number one, digested food from intestine to the parts of the body. Number two, it transports oxygen from the lungs to the parts of the body, and also waste product from different parts of the body for the removal. So this is very, very, very important. Now, blood is a liquid which has cells of various kinds, as I told you, RBC, WBC, platelets. Now, this is a good question. Why is the color of the blood red? So blood contains a pigment. Blood contains a pigment, which I will be telling you soon. Yes, so as I told you, the fluid part is called plasma, and some of the formed elements or the type of cells you can say are red blood cells, which contain a red pigment. Yes, as I said, it is known as hemoglobin. This is extremely important. So hemoglobin, it binds with oxygen. We discussed that a very important function of blood is to transport oxygen. So hemoglobin, it makes it very efficient to transport this oxygen. It binds with this oxygen, flows in the blood, and transports it to the various parts of the body. So hemoglobin binds with oxygen and transports it to all parts of the body and ultimately to all the cells. So it will be difficult to provide oxygen efficiently to all cells of body without hemoglobin. This is another question that can be asked. You may be asked, what is hemoglobin? What is hemoglobin? And the functions of hemoglobin. Or you can also be asked, what would happen if we didn't have hemoglobin in our blood? And yes, the presence of hemoglobin makes blood appear red. Now, another formed element, that is white blood cells. So RBCs have hemoglobin. The WBCs, that is white blood cells, don't have hemoglobin, and so they are white. and they are responsible for the immunity, that is, fight against germs that enter our body. So they fight against the germs, diseases, pathogens, etc. that enter our body. Now here they talk about platelets, that is, once we get a cut, for example, or an injury, blood comes out, but after a while it forms a clot, a red clot, that is a hard, rough, dark brown kind of a substance that forms a clot which stops blood from flowing. And this is because of another type of cells, as I said, platelets. So we discussed what are RBCs, WBCs, and platelets, and also plasma, and also the pigment. So this entire page is very important, as so many MCQs and short answers can be asked from this page. Let's move forward. Now let's talk about blood vessels. So blood doesn't just flow openly throughout the body. It flows in the form of organized blood vessels. So we're going to discuss about very important blood vessels. So yes, there are different types of blood vessels, and our lungs, when we inhale, there is a fresh supply of oxygen in our lungs, oxygen. And this oxygen has to be transported, and we saw that blood does this job of transporting oxygen. So blood picks up waste materials like carbon dioxide and etc. and takes it back so that we remove it. So you can imagine this as a form of a cycle. This is actually called as cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle is something very detailed, very important, and very intricate, which you will learn in higher classes. But for now, we can learn it in a very short way. Cardiac cycle is how we, rhythmic contraction, relaxation of the heart, etc. We're going to learn, but this is not required in class 7. You can imagine this is a normal cycle. So blood, we get oxygen from our lungs. Blood transports it throughout our body, and it is transported till here. Our entire body has got oxygenated blood for its vital purposes. Now the same blood is going to carry carbon dioxide and other waste products back to the heart, from where it will send it to the lungs to throw it out of our body. I will show you this in a very, very, very beautiful manner through a diagram in some time. But for now, let's get familiar with some of the blood vessels. So there are two types of blood vessels, arteries and veins. Arteries and veins. Now, arteries, they carry oxygen-rich blood. Veins carry deoxygenated blood or carbon dioxide rich blood or waste products in the blood. So you must have understood that arteries take blood to the various parts of the body, whereas veins take it towards the heart, carrying the waste products so that we can excrete them. So one more important fact about arteries, which is the main point, is that arteries go away from the heart. They carry blood away from the heart, whereas veins bring blood towards the heart. I can give you a trick to remember this. Arteries A, away A. So arteries carry blood away from the heart. A for artery, A for away. So veins just opposite. Veins carry blood towards the heart. Okay, let's move forward. So as I said, arteries carry oxygen-rich blood from the heart to all parts of the body. So now the important part here is the blood flow is rapid and is at high pressure. So arteries have thick elastic walls. When the blood is oxygen rich, it is very excited because it wants to supply the entire body with oxygen. So it is excited, which means it is rapid, it is fast, it is under high pressure because it is going very fast at high speed, high pressure. So the artery should have thick walls to sustain this pressure. Otherwise, there can be damages because it's such a high pressure, you need to support it with thick elastic walls. But veins have thinner walls because the blood is deoxygenated, the pressure is not so high. So there is an activity which I will discuss soon. Okay, veins. Now veins, they carry carbon dioxide rich blood from various parts of the body back to the heart, Now, veins have thin walls, and they have valves. Now, because they are thin, and blood is not flowing in high pressure, and to make sure that the blood is going in the right direction towards the heart, there is no backward flow. Backward flow of blood. Some valves are present. This is a very important MCQ. Valves are present which make blood flow only towards the heart and not backward. Okay, now we will also see in one of the diagrams, you can see that the arteries divide into smaller vessels, and on reaching the tissues, they divide into capillaries. For example, you can say that you have a country. It is divided into states. Again, it is divided into small districts. Then you can say, sectors or streets, etc. Similarly, the arteries and veins, they divide into smaller vessels. Again, they divide into capillaries, extremely thin tubes called capillaries. And these capillaries, again, they join, which again form larger veins. They empty into the heart, just like this. This is my heart. It is going and it is dividing, okay, into smaller. So this is the small things. And again, they unite to come back to the heart again. Now, this is an activity which you can do. So just keep your finger as shown here, and you will feel a throbbing. That is nothing but your pulse. So it is due to the movement of blood in the arteries. So if you count them, you will get around 72 to 80 in normal average. You will get this value, and this is known as your pulse rate. So this is the number of beats per minute is your pulse rate. This is very important. This can be coming for your MCQ. This is very, very important. 72 to 80 beats per minute. Okay, now let's move to heart. So this is something that keeps us alive. It's a non-stop pump. It's like a pump. It contracts, relaxes. It's pumping blood. So yes, it's a pump. Okay, it's a pump. It's a non-stop pump without stopping. Now it's located in the chest. This is the location or the biological location of your heart. This is also important. It's in the chest cavity, right? It's between the lungs, right? Between the lungs and the rib cage is protecting your heart, and the lower tip is tilted towards the left. Now, this is also confusing. You may get confused upper tip or lower tip, right or left. Just remember lower tip, left, L, L. Arteries, blood away, A, L, L, lower, left. Okay. Now, also, I will just erase this. Yes. What can be the approximate size of your heart? That is like a closed fist. If this is like your fist, your fingers, keep them closed, right? This is your fist, okay? So this is an approximate size of your heart. So this is different for different individuals. Now, what will happen if blood rich in oxygen and carbon dioxide mix with each other? So what will happen? This is something that should not happen, because our body needs a lot of energy, which means we need a lot of oxygen. So we humans, we have so many processes. We need to move, we need to talk, we need to digest. There are so many things. We need so much energy. So we need efficient supply of oxygen. We need an efficient supply of oxygen, and we cannot afford to mix these two. This can also be dangerous. Okay, so what does our heart do? What are the adaptations of our heart so that we can maintain this? So our heart is divided into chambers. Yes, it is simple. If you want to avoid mixing, suppose you have pencils, erasers, sharpeners, and they're all cluttered together. You want to avoid mixing, you will keep separate sections for each of them. Similarly, our heart has maintained separate sections which are known as chambers. Upper ones are known as atria, and the lower ones are known as ventricles. So we have two atria and two ventricles, and both are left and right, arranged in this way. You can see. So they are arranged like this, and these were again separated by something known as a septum. We have a septum here. We have a septum here as well. Okay, and the partition, this is a partition, helps to avoid mixing up of blood rich in oxygen and rich in carbon dioxide. So there is, as I said, a cardiac cycle. It's a cycle that happens which regulates blood flowing here, 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 and it's a very, very, very nice cycle which actually keeps you alive, transports oxygen so efficiently, collects carbon dioxide. Again, I will be discussing this with a very nice diagram so that you don't get confused. Okay, so yes, this is what I was going to explain. So Bujo is having a confusion. He says that artery, as I said, artery always carries oxygen-rich blood. But there is one artery that carries carbon dioxide-rich blood. Okay, I will show you. Arteries, the primary, remember that primary function of artery is, suppose, not a function, you can say a key, is taking blood away from the heart. And vein is to the heart. If you remember this, then you will not get confused at all. Okay, this is a very important diagram and I will explain this to you. So our heart is divided into 4 chambers. This is my right atria. This is my left ventricle and right ventricle. One thing you have to remember is when we draw diagrams in biology, we take the opposite. If this is something, usually this is my right and this is my left. But when we draw diagrams, this is our right and this is our left. Because, for example, if you're looking at your friend, and if you're looking at your friend, she's waving, okay? She's waving with her right hand. This is her right hand, but when I look from here, for me, this is left and this is right. So because we are drawing diagrams in that cross section, we will take this as right and this as left. I hope that was not confusing. So now let's get to this cycle. Okay. Now these are my lungs. First of all, my lungs get some oxygen-rich blood. When I inhale, I get some oxygen-rich blood. Now this, I want to transport it to the heart. How will I do this? Through a pulmonary vein. Now why vein? Because the vein is going to bring blood towards the heart. But here it is going to be oxygenated blood. Pulmonary itself means something related to lungs. Now, because it is bringing oxygenated blood from the lungs, I will call it vein. Why vein? Because I'm bringing it towards the heart, but it is going to have oxygenated blood. Okay. Similarly, when I'm sending the deoxygenated blood towards the lungs to exhale, we exhale carbon dioxide rich blood, or carbon dioxide is what we exhale. Now, this heart is going to send carbon dioxygenated blood, and that is going to be done through the pulmonary artery, pulmonary lungs, and artery because it is taking blood away, A. As I said, you have to remember this primarily, okay? But if it is pulmonary artery, it is going to carry deoxygenated blood, or you can say carbon dioxide rich blood. And if it is pulmonary vein, it is going to carry oxygenated blood. But in both cases, be it pulmonary or the normal artery, this is going to remain constant. This is always constant. So you can remember this. Okay. Now I will just show you the cycle. Now I'm getting oxygenated blood in my left atria. In left atria, the pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood. I pass it to my left ventricle. From this, an artery, this is aorta, the largest artery of the body. Aorta carries the oxygenated blood, AA, right? AA, it's taking blood away from the heart. Here also it is taking blood away from the heart. But here it is oxygenated. Here it is deoxygenated or carbon dioxide rich blood. I'm taking it to my body. This is my body, tissues, or you can say tissues, to various capillaries. We in the previous slides, we saw it divides into capillaries. And my oxygenated blood is used here for all vital processes. It can be any process. And from here, the blood is carrying the deoxygenated blood or with the waste products. And it is taking it through vena cava. Vena cava is again superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. You will learn it in upcoming classes. And I will take it to my right atria. Right atria, again pass it on to my right ventricle, and from the right ventricle, it goes to the lungs through the pulmonary artery as deoxygenated blood. So this is a cardiac cycle. So just to summarize this entire thing. So pulmonary artery, away from the heart, but it carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Pulmonary vein, it carries blood to the heart. It is oxygenated from the lungs. Now, normal arteries, they carry blood again away from the heart. It is oxygenated, and it is through the various parts of the body, And veins, they carry blood to the heart. It is deoxygenated blood and from the various parts of the body. So you can take a screenshot of this as this decreases the confusion, and you can go through. Just remember, arteries always take blood away from the heart. Veins bring it to the heart. When it is pulmonary, it is related to the lungs. So artery will take it away from the heart and to the lungs, and the pulmonary vein will take it to the heart from the lungs. So now let's move ahead. Now, what is a heartbeat? So the walls of the chambers of the heart, they're made up of muscles. The walls of atria are thinner than the walls of the ventricle. Now, the muscles, they contract and relax rhythmically. And this rhythmic contraction followed by relaxation constitute a heartbeat. This is extremely important, and this is very important from MCQ point of view. That is, rhythmic contraction followed by relaxation constitute a heartbeat. Now, a heartbeat produces two sounds, lub and dub. Now, heartbeats continue to every moment of our life. And if you place your hand on the left side, you can feel your heartbeat. Now, doctors will feel this heartbeat with the help of an instrument known as a stethoscope. You may be seeing this is a stethoscope. So it contains an earpiece and a chest piece, and something that connects both of them is your tube. So stethoscope amplifies. This is a very, very, very important word. It amplifies the sound. This can be asked for MCQs, and they may give you multiple options in which one will be amplified. So you have to know that it amplifies the sound of the heart. Now, it consists of a chest piece with a sensitive diaphragm, two earpieces, and a tube. You must be seeing when you go to the hospital, doctors have this, and they tell you to take a deep breath, they check your heartbeat. Now, they can get clues about your condition through this stethoscope. Okay? And one more thing, blood pressure. Normal blood pressure is 120 by 80. That is mm's of Hg. This is a unit to measure blood pressure. And the instrument, sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer measures blood pressure, whereas to check your heartbeat, it is your stethoscope. So please don't get confused, as this can come for MCQ. Now, there is an activity about constructing a model of the stethoscope with material, so you can have a read-through of that as well. So each heartbeat generates one pulse in the artery. Okay, one pulse in the artery, as we had checked the throbbing in the previous activity as well. And the pulse rate per minute is nothing but the rate of your heartbeat or your heart rate. Now, the rhythmic beating of various chambers, they maintain circulation. What maintains circulation? What maintains circulation and transport. It is the rhythmic beating of various chambers of the heart. Now, one more interesting question is sponges and hydra. You must have heard of these. They are very primitive organisms. We belong to the phylum of chordates, humans. We are very developed organisms. But sponges, hydra, they're very primitive. They belong to, sponge and coelentrates. They are very primitive organisms and not so developed. They don't have such developed systems, no organ systems. So how did they actually, circulate nutrients or even collect wastes? So the answer is they live in water. They're aquatic, live in water. So water actually brings food and oxygen as it enters the body, and this water itself carries away the waste materials like carbon dioxide. So animals, these kind of primitive animals, they don't really need a circulatory fluid like blood. Humans need it, but they don't need it. So a question, they can of course ask this question as a reasoning question, but you can also learn that hydra is an example of sponge. Okay. Now, we learned how oxygen-rich blood is transported, why it is transported, but how is this carbon dioxide-rich blood taken away? So we will learn that. Here comes excretion. Yes, as I told you, when we remove these waste substances, we are excreting it out. Now, carbon dioxide is not the only waste product that we excrete, but it is one of the waste product. So the process of removal of waste produced in the cells is known as excretion. This is important. And the parts involved in the excretory system, as we saw, transportation and providing nutrients, all that comes under circulation. And the parts like heart, blood, etc., they are the circulatory system. So similarly, excretion and excretory system. Suppose I have any reaction taking place in my body. There is a reaction taking place in my body. It can be digestion or anything for that matter. It has some vital products. For example, the nutrients or what I want to use. For example, energy. There can be some waste products, which I don't want. I want to throw this out. I want to throw this out of my body, or else it will form toxins which accumulate and is very, very, very harmful for my body. Yes, you can see here, toxic, and they have to be removed from the body. Now we'll see the excretory system in humans. So the excretory system constitutes of a pair of kidneys, ureters, a urinary bladder, and a urethra or urethra. So it looks somewhat like this. You have kidney, okay, and there are some ureter, and this is like this, okay. This is kidney. This is actually a tube, and this is my ureter. This is my urinary bladder, and urethra is this tiny little opening there. Okay, now waste that is present in the body has to be removed from the body, and a mechanism to filter this is required. For example, if we have some muddy water, we use a filter paper like this, right? And then the water comes and the sediments remain here. But we cannot have such filter papers in our body. We have a filtering mechanism in our body, which is carried out by our kidneys. So this is carried out in the kidneys, and the blood reaches the two kidneys, and it contains useful and harmful substances. The kidney uses the harmful and it discards the carbon dioxide or the waste products. So the useful substances are absorbed back into the blood, and the waste dissolved are removed as urine. It's a watery waste products that are removed in the form of urine, and this urine, it's formed in the kidneys, it's passed through the ureters, and it is stored in the urinary bladder, and then it is released through the urethra. This is done through the contraction of the bladder and the relaxation of the urethra. So tube-like ureters, it is stored in the bladder, passed out through the urinary opening at the end of the muscular tube called urethra. Now, kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra form the excretory system. This is very important, as I told you here. Now, these some numbers given here. You can mark this as important as well. So in biology, almost every sentence, almost every fact that is given is important and can come as an MCQ. So be very thorough. So 1.8 liters of urine is passed in a day, 24 hours. And urine is 95% water. Yes, it is 95% of water, 2.5% urea, and 2.5% of other waste products. Why urea? I will tell you soon. So we have experienced that we sweat on a hot summer day. Now, sweat contains some water, some salts. So sometimes, you know, in summer, white patches, you must have seen certain white patches are formed on our clothes. This is because they are the salts that have been excreted through sweat. So urine is not the only excretory product. We have sweat, right? Sometimes our skin also secretes some excretory products. So, you know, sweat, your skin, sebaceous glands, and many times even saliva. So salts are present, and that actually forms these white patches as sweat. So one more important function of sweat is it helps to cool. Now this is shown through this particular para. That is what it does is, you know, in matka, or you can say earthen pots. I will erase this. Okay, you must have seen these earthen pots. Water inside this remains cool, but do you know why they remain cool? I will tell you. So this has water inside. Okay, this has water, and this matka or this earthen pot has certain pores, very minute. It's not like the water will leak entirely outside. No, it's not like that. There's very minute pores through which water actually evaporates. Now, you know, evaporation needs heat, right? These water droplets, they absorb heat and they get evaporated. So heat is used, which means the, you know, all the particles that were heated, or say the heat had been used from the atmosphere, and so what remains is cool water. That is why the water in such pots remain cool, because heat has been used to evaporate some of the water. Now similarly, when we sweat, it cools our body as well. So as I said, I will tell you why urea. Why do we excrete only urea? So our body, we have many waste substances, but most important thing we excrete is urea. But why? Do all organisms excrete only urea? The answer is no. So it actually depends on the availability of water. Very, very, very important. This is a crux of the whole excretory product and why we excrete urea. Availability of water. Now, you can classify excretory products broadly, or for say grade 7 to 3 parts. That is, ammonia is a very you know, it's a harmful nitrogenous excretory product. One is urea. One more is uric acid. Okay, I'll give you this in the form of a flow chart, so it becomes very easy. So ammonia, urea, uric acid. Ammonia requires lots of water for excretion. So much water it needs to excrete. So what happens is that if we excrete ammonia, there'll be so much water loss from our body, which is totally not accepted. We cannot afford to lose so much water. So aquatic animals they excrete ammonia because they live in water, so water can easily take the ammonia, and see, it's aquatic animals like fishes, they excrete waste as ammonia because it directly dissolves in water. They live in water, so they don't have any water loss as such. Now, moving to urea, it doesn't require so much of water. Like land animals, like birds, lizards, and all, they excrete as a semi-solid, like pellets. They're actually like pellets. So they excrete uric acid like a semi-solid way. So they don't need so much. It's like pellets, right? To avoid water loss. It avoids water loss. So to avoid water loss, they use uric acid because birds, snakes, they want to conserve their water. So they cannot excrete ammonia. They will excrete uric acid. And for humans, they excrete urea because it's okay. We can afford to lose water which is required to excrete urea. We can afford to do that. So we excrete that, and this is usually humans. You can say humans, or maybe terrestrial organisms as well. Some of the terrestrial organisms. A fact I would like to tell you here: these organisms are called monotelic organisms. They excrete ammonia. We are called ureotelic because we excrete urea, whereas these birds, etc., they are known as uricotelic. Uricotelic organisms, they excrete uric acid. So the examples which are mentioned here are very important. Now, this is about dialysis. So some people, some kidneys, they don't function due to maybe injury, infection, constricted blood flow. So as a result of this kidney failure, the waste products get accumulated because our kidney is not functioning, the filter is not functioning. So to excrete such the waste products in such people, we use a method which is called dialysis or hemodialysis. So blood is filtered periodically through an artificial kidney, and the working of this particular device or mechanism you will be learning in your higher classes. Now we learned about humans. What about plants? We need to learn how transport happens in plants. So do plants have such hearts and blood? No. So what do? So food must be made available to each and every cell of the organism. For example, we eat, it gets digested in the small intestine, but our blood makes it travel to all parts of our body. We get nutrients, and so we are sustaining all our cells, our vital processes through the energy, through the breakdown of glucose. But plants, what do? So plants, the leaves prepare food. Correct. Suppose this is my plant. Okay. And my roots. My leaf is preparing food. Correct. My leaf is preparing my food for the plant. So if the leaf only uses it, the rest of the plant also has to sustain. This has chlorophyll. The green parts of the plant, it has chlorophyll. It prepares food through photosynthesis. Through photosynthesis, it prepares its food, and if it uses the food on its own, then how is the rest of the plant going to get this? And one more thing is the plants need water, sunlight, etc. From where is it getting its water? It cannot generate its own water. We know that roots, they provide water. From here, if there is water, they absorb the water and it reaches the leaves. But how is what we want to learn? How do they do this is what we have to learn. So let's move to the next slide. So plants absorb water and minerals by the roots. So plants, they use roots. So the water is present below the soil. My roots. Now you must have seen roots. Do roots look like this? No, they have root hairs. Root hairs. Why do they have root hairs? So that they can increase the surface area for absorption. If I have something which absorbs, and if I have this material which absorbs, and which will absorb more? Of course, this, because this has more surface area, this has less surface area. So similarly, it has root hairs. They increase the surface area for absorption of water and even mineral nutrients which are required by the plant. We need nutrients, even plants need nutrients. So water, again, now this has absorbed. Now, how will water move to the leaf? So two things we have to learn is how water or minerals reach the roots, and how is this transported to leaves. From there, from leaf, how is it transported from the leaf to the other parts? Similar, you can compare it with the human circulatory system. We're getting oxygen from lungs. Lungs travel to the from the lungs, it travels to the heart. from the heart again to the rest of the body. Similarly, it goes to the roots, from the roots to the leaves, then leaves again transported throughout the plant. So if you compare and learn, it becomes very easy. Now let's look at one guess over here. He says that the plants may have pipes, just like we have pipes in our house, but we can say that they have pipe-like structures. Pipe-like, we cannot say pipes, pipe-like structures. See, pipe-like vessels to transport water and nutrients from the soil. So vessels, we have blood vessels, but plants have vascular tissues. Plants have vascular tissue. So tissue is a group of cells that perform specialized function in an organism. We know that, right? Tissues, they're formed by a group of cells which perform a specialized function. And tissues, they form organ, and organs form organ system. So there are two types of vascular tissues, and there is a trick coming up. Okay, so vascular tissues in plants, this is for plants. Vascular tissues. I have xylem and phloem. So xylem transports water, minerals, etc. Okay, whatever I'm getting from my roots. My root is giving me water, minerals, etc. So xylem is going to transport that water, minerals to the leaves and to other parts of the plant as well. It is going to transport. Where phloem is going to transport the food prepared. Leaf is preparing food. That food has to get transported to all parts of the plant. So I need phloem for that. What is the trick to remember this? So the trick is phloem, food, the phonetics. F, it's not F for phloem, it is PH, but we say phloem. Yes, we say phloem, and this is food. So F, phloem, food. Okay. Now, leaves synthesize food. Yes, leaves synthesize food, and it has to be transported, as I said. So this tissue, phloem tissue does this. So xylem and phloem, all in all, xylem and phloem transport substances in plants. We saw about humans. This was about plants. There is another important process called transpiration. What is transpiration? Now, for example, if I give you some water, but you don't require so much of water, I have water till here. You want to drink only this much. This is excess. So you will drink only excess and leave this. But plants, what they do, when the roots don't know how much plant is required, whatever they find, they give it to the plant. You can remember like this. They give it to the plant. Okay, this is my root. This is my leaves. Now, the leaves, the plant uses how much ever they need. Xylem is transporting. They're using how much they need. They utilize how much they need. The rest, they don't accumulate. For example, they produce through photosynthesis, they store the energy or the food as glucose, starch, etc. But plants, they don't store water. They release it to the environment. So stomata, they are present on the plant leaf surface, stomata. So what they do is they produce this water, they release it, and it is evaporated into the environment. So the water, excess water, is evaporated through the surface of the leaf. This is what happens. So now you can see the definition is very important. Transpiration, very important. It evaporates through the stomata present on the surface of the leaves by the process of transpiration. And this evaporation, it generates a suction pull. Now, what is this actually talking about? Now, transpiration, it has some advantages, some disadvantages. What is the disadvantage? It causes loss of water. It causes loss of water. But advantages, there are some advantages. So first advantage, I will change the color. Advantage is that, suppose I'm having something like this here. Okay, this is like a pump system. From here, I'm getting water. And from here, I'm losing my water. I'm losing my water. So as I lose my water, there is a suction pull that I want more. The plant loses water and says, I want more. So this generates a suction pull upward. And so xylem, water is absorbed. And this is like I'm pulling a rope from here, so something is coming up as similar to that. If I have something like a rope and a bag is here, and when I pull the rope, this bag is coming upward. It's generating a suction pull. You can remember like that. So this is one merit. So I'm getting water for the plant, generating this suction pull. This is 1 merit. So one is suction pull. Second, as I told you that when we sweat, why do we sweat? It causes cooling. So you can imagine transpiration as sweating of the plant. So it causes cooling. It causes cooling for the plant. Yes, it also cools the plant. So it's written that it generates a suction pull, just like when you suck water through a straw. Yeah, this is a good example. When you suck water through a straw, you're taking water out and more of it is coming. It's generating a suction pull. So you can pull water to great heights in taller plants. In taller trees, you need so much of water. It has to reach every part, which is high, low, everywhere. So when transpiration occurs, it generates a suction pull and water is going through heights. Also, transpiration cools the plant. So that is all for this lesson. And I hope all of you understood and liked this session. If you did, then do hit the like button, share this video to your friends and subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed. Until then, bye-bye and keep learning.